Oh, hecking heck, it's time to talk about the latest episode of My Hero Academia. This week, the episode is entitled Hellish Hell. Before getting to what I thought about the episode, I want to know what you thought about it, dear listener. Did you love it? Did you hate it? Let me know in the comment section down below, and you will be read out in next week's show. Whilst you're there, be sure to like, favourite, subscribe, click the bell, and do all the YouTube stuff that YouTube wants you to do, because YouTube is increasing the scary place for small content creators. Support your local small content creator today. It will do them a power of good. Now, on to the review. Well, it looks like it's time to update the video's graphics again. Anyway, as we always do at the start of a video, let us get into the positives. And I have to say that once we actually got into the episode itself, we were treated to some really moving and powerful moments of drama and peril, the likes of which we haven't really seen in this series overall so far. And to be honest, it's something that we rarely see in superhero fiction at all. We never really see the immediate aftermath of incidents like this. You know, we don't really see what happens after Superman's been throwing Zod through building after building and murdering people in the collateral damage. We never really see the immediate aftermath of all of that, though I think it was brought up in one of the most recent Superman movies, and I think it's at the start of the first of the Marvel Spider-Man movies, but even then it's only a small fraction of it, and it's on some little soundstage thing. We never see it quite to this level of visceral, just shock and awe is the only way that I can best describe it. There were just moments within it which were, they hit hard, I will be honest. The bit with the little girl and her older brother was... it was a heavy moment, and even just thinking back to it, it does hit me a lot harder than I thought it would have done. This episode has moments in it which just, it's like getting an emotional punch in the face. You just don't really know how to react to it, which makes writing and doing these reviews so immediately after it just a little bit harder. But still, just stuff like that, just the sheer desperation and shock on people's faces in this episode, just the sheer bloody brutality of it was just... It made the episode, I think, 10 times better than I feared that it was going to end up being. Like, when we got into the early half of it, and I'll discuss this in the negative section, it was just a flashback and a flashback and a flashback, and then when we get into the episode, it's flooring. Again, just the sheer level of desperation and horror on people's faces. The moment where we have that hero just standing there, just the sheer lack of hope and optimism and drive within him. Just this feeling of, oh God, what have I gotten myself in for? For the heroes of this world in this particular time period, none of them have dealt with anything quite like this before. And even if we were to take the movies as being canon, even the most recent ones, it's only small scale destruction. It's only like a street or something. This is an entire section of a city. There are people that have been pulverized, flattened, turned to ash and dust, and God only knows what else. For these characters, it's like walking into a war zone. A week ago, they might have been signing autographs in the local shopping centre, and now they're just dealing with this waking nightmare. And just that look that Achako gives, it just you get this sense of things just ticking around in the back of her head, making her wonder, is this the moment we all give up? On a slightly lesser but still interesting note, I think the opening stuff with ReDestro and his meeting was interesting. I will be honest, I failed to see why we really needed to see it. It feels like something that was being added in because they just, for whatever reason, didn't add it in earlier on into the arc, because it didn't really change anything. It doesn't recontextualize anything what we've seen thus far, unless the implication is that the death of the chairwoman is what resulted in the mission being activated, or just done in the way that it was. Which might have been an interesting point had we known more about her ahead of time and got an idea as to what her decision-making process was, or we had seen the group of this committee trying to make this decision. Like, we could have easily had an insert scene of them arguing and debating as to, well, we've got to go ahead with the mission in her honour. No, it's too dangerous. We need some more time to plan stuff out. Oh, we don't have time. Like, just something like that would have added something to it and made it feel as though there was something else here that maybe had things gone a little bit more differently. Had they not tried to catch ReDestro out like this, then maybe things would have gone differently. Like, I think that it's one of those interesting points that fan fiction writers and what if writers could have gone over, just go, right, had things gone differently, would it have gone differently? Had that whole ambush gone differently? Had it not happened at all, would this mission have been a success? You know, it's something that could be debated, but we don't get that. It feels like something that's been added in just so that we don't get 10 minutes of just pure flashback. But again, talk about that in the negative section. The death of Midnight was one which, look, I'm just going to be blunt, it was a moment which was spoilt for me, like, at this point, a good 2 or 3 years ahead of time. Like, almost as soon as it happened in the manga, it was in the thumbnails and descriptions of YouTube videos, so I've known about this well in advance. So, regrettably, it doesn't have the same level of impact for me as it will do for many of you out there. It's been something it's like waiting for the iceberg to hit when you're watching a movie about the Titanic. You know it's going to happen, you're just wondering as to how it's going to be handled, and I think that for the most part it was handled well. I think that in the manga her death is treated slightly differently. I think in the manga she, to be blunt, is beaten to death by members of the Metal Liberation Army. I don't think that you actually see that happening, but I think that is the implication as to what happens. And that is an implication that I think is teased slightly within the anime, because shortly before we see her for the last time, we see the members of the Liberation Army charging towards her. I don't know if that happened, and I'll be honest, I didn't need to see that happening, but it feels as though there's something missing in it for me that could have knocked it to the next level. But I think that's more of a problem in general with Midnight as a character. I think that for this moment to get its extra level of weight, I think that Midnight needed to be more of a present character within the show. I think that she needed to be developed better and to get us better understanding of her, because to be blunt, she's a character which for the most part just feels like let's be honest, a fan service character more so than an actual character and a human being in her own right. So when a moment like this does come along, as sad as it is, it feels like it could have been sadder, but that is a debate for a whole other time, probably something that we'll discuss when we get into the season-wide review itself. And just one more positive, even though it's kind of a negative at the same time, it's that we get confirmation that it wasn't electricity that broke Tomura back. Even though we've had many astute and very well-educated people in the comment section discussing, it actually wasn't that. In the manga, it's handled differently. But, to be fair, whilst on the one hand, yeah, I can appreciate them actually doing this to say that it wasn't, on the other hand, it's just handled in such a cack-handed and clumsy way that I just don't know how to really process it. Like, on the one hand, it feels like it's there to head off any complaints, like, from idiots like me thinking it's a bit silly. But at the same time, it feels like a case of, well, you could have just not put that in at all, because it is an anime-only thing. It just wasn't a factor. I get why it was there. It's a Frankenstein reference. It's a reference to Frankenstein bringing his monster to life. I get that, but it's just such a confusing moment that just to have that little explanation as to, no, it wasn't the electricity, it was his pure hatred for everybody that brought him back to life. Which itself does feel like a bit of a stretch even still, so it kind of feels like, why bother, because you're just making it more complicated. But still, I feel that we're going to get into a rant if we dwell on this too much, because it's something I've discussed way too much already. So with that all said and done, let's just pivot fully into the negatives. And this is going to be a nitpicky thing, and I know that I might get flack for this, but I do feel that the title of this episode was just rather juvenile. I know this is a rather anal point and something I can just keep going to over different episodes, but I feel that for an episode and a story that is just as dark and as powerful as this one, I feel that a title like Hellish Hell just feels rather clumsy. Again, it might be something that is lost in translation, but at the same time, it just feels a bit silly to me, given everything that's happened. Maybe it's there as a juxtaposition, maybe it's there to disarm you going into the episode, I don't know. But I suppose you could explain it away as just saying, look, this is Midoriya's story, it's told from his point of view, so that's why it's called the way that it is. It's his point of view, he's only a teenager, so yes, it's going to have a bit of a juvenile title. He is a hero, not a wordsmith, I understand that, so let's get into more thing a little bit more substantive. And yeah, we've just got to address the elephant in the room here. Almost half the runtime of this episode was just a clip show, and there's no polite way in saying that. We see pretty much the entirety of this arc, minus the big fighting stuff with Tomura, just condensed into a 10-minute block. And I understand why we have a moment like that, because we are coming off a bit of a break and a refresher is needed, but at the same time, it's only been a week off. Had it been something longer, it would have felt more necessary. But even still, I still don't think it was needed. This is a program that is aimed at teenagers and young adults, and they are likely to have an attention span that's going to remember stuff from more than a week ago. Had this been a program aimed at a slightly younger age bracket, then sure, it would have worked, but here and now, it just feels like filler in a way which I really don't think that we needed. On the other hand, I don't think that had everything been quite as emotively heavy as the stuff we got in the second half, I don't think I would have been able to survive that, but at the same time, I think there's a better way this episode could have gone down, all things considered. And as for the drama itself, look, there's a part of me that wants to talk about this now, but there's a part of me that wants to save this for when we talk about this season overall, but I think we'll just start to address it now. As far as the deeper drama stuff is concerned, as far as the stuff with Midnight's death and just how horribly things have gone for our heroes, there's a part of me that can't help feel that maybe the writers might have shown their hand a little bit too much last season. Because in last season's series, we get the moment I think it's in the Christmas episode, where Midoriya says something along the lines of, "This is the last moment that we all share together, we were truly happy." And whilst that creates good drama within that moment, there is always then going to be that problem of waiting for the bad things to happen. So regardless of whether stuff was spoilt for you or not, there was always going to be this voice in the back of your head saying, okay, so this is the moment where things go downhill, or this is the moment where things go downhill, or when you see certain things happening with certain characters, you can only think to yourself, well, this is the moment something bad happens to them. So there was always going to be this sensation in the back of my head, regardless of whether I had it spoilt for me or not, that this was going to be the arc where Midnight was going to die, because the previous season said, pretty much almost that explicitly, that stuff like that was going to happen. And I think that at the end of the day, that might have been a step too far. I understand, once again, great drama for that moment, but beyond that point, because it just feels like any time something bad is going to start happening to one of our heroes, we know, right, this is the moment we're probably going to end up dying, or something's going to get worse for them in some regard. But maybe this is something that we discuss in greater detail in the season review when we get to that in about 12 weeks' time. And just one more complaint, and I'm going to keep this as vague as I possibly can do, because this itself might be spoilers, but wow, we really are just getting into it next week, aren't we? Like, I saw the preview for next week's episode just purely and simply because I wanted to see the new intro and outro. And for the record, I feel that intro might be a bit spoiler heavy. Possibly, I don't know, because there are still some stuff that thankfully hasn't been spoiled for me, but I'm just watching it thinking to myself, yeah, this implies things, which, yeah, that sucks that we found out about that now. So not only is it arsehole YouTubers, it's also the program itself. Wow, but, you know, next week's episode, we really are just getting into it, so it looks like next season might be the last one of My Hero Academia, unless they try to get cheeky and spin it out to 8 seasons, but we'll soon see about that. As for my feelings as overall, as we now get into the overview, I feel that the episode was good, if disjointed. I'm not going to be the only one saying this, but I feel that the opening 10 minutes of this episode just being dedicated to flashback sequences and reminding us of stuff that happened only a matter of weeks ago just wasn't necessary. And now just thinking about this, going off script ever so slightly, the fact they were able to condense it into such a short period kind of makes me think that maybe they could have just condensed that entire arc into something a lot more manageable. Maybe not to the point where it only happens over the course of a couple of episodes or so, but that was 13 episodes, man. That was 13 episodes, and we were able to get all the key moments for it given to us in the space of about 10 minutes. Minus a few, because it didn't cover the stuff with Tomura and Midoriya all that much, but still, 10 minutes of the runtime was just a flashback. There was a part of me that was starting to worry midway through this episode that, oh god, this is going to be the filler episode of this arc. They've gone from doing the filler at the start of the season to do it midway through, oh god. But then that didn't happen, and we got the really moving, heavy stuff midway through the episode, and I was just struggling to cope. But still, we'll see what happens next week. We really are getting into it, aren't we? But still, that is what I thought thus far. So let's get into what you thought as we now get into Comment Corner. And now we get into comment corner. As almost always, we get a comment from Big X1 who says, "Didn't expect to see a video from you so early. Now I can sleep." Well, to be honest with you, that video was recorded a good couple days in advance because I actually had time to do it. Granted, not as far in advance as I would have liked to, but that's a whole other matter. I enjoyed a lot of Season 6. I don't think it's my favourite season, but there have been some great moments. The end of Twice, Mirio getting his quirk back, and seeing Miriku, that's a name I'll never get right, on the big screen have been some of my favourite stuff. And to be honest, those are all fine selections of great moments. I still think that Mirio probably should have got a bit more time to explain, how he was feeling about not having a quirk, but that's a debate and a discussion for a whole other time. Thank you for your comment. If you would like to leave a comment down below, just do so. There's nothing really stopping you. It's free! You can also like, favourite, subscribe, click the bell, and do all the YouTube stuff that YouTube wants to do, because YouTube is an increasingly scary place for small content creators, especially given certain court cases going against YouTube at the moment, which, well, I don't know, let's just move on from that. I'm not going to get involved with that. This video's gone on for way too long enough as is, and I just want to say to you, thank you all for listening, thank you all for watching, and see you next time. Goodbye! Thanks for watching. Be sure to like, favourite, subscribe, click the bell, and do all the YouTubey stuff that YouTube wants you to do. Go on, it'll do me a power of good. Until next time, my friends, goodbye!